Please help me welcome back to the stage the director, Gregory Nava. And to talk about the film with you, we're going to welcome to the stage Joe Crisafulli, also a filmmaker. And our very own Matt Zollerseitz. I'm going to put you here.
Okay.
I'm putting you here.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you all very much. I'm really emotional. I haven't seen this film in a long time. And I just want to ask you a question. Is Mi Familia su familia? Yes. Thank you so much. Just being with you in the audience, it was so beautiful and gratifying, and I really want to thank you for being such a beautiful audience and loving movies the way you do. You all deserve a hand. Let's hear a hand for the beautiful audience, the public. You make movies, you make us. Because of you, we make movies.
Well, this is one of the great movies. It's
thank
one of the
you.
great American movies, it really is. And I associate it so strongly with Roger, who championed it. And this is, you know, I think everybody here probably feels a little emotional about this being the last dance. But
It's not going to be the last dance. Si se puede.
But it just, to me, it illustrates, like so many of the other movies that have been shown here, the things that Roger valued. And one of the things that he valued that not too many other critics valued was directness of emotion. Mm-hmm. Like, there's nothing coy about this movie. There's nothing cool about this movie. Like, some characters in it are cool at times, but the movie is totally open-hearted. And I remember seeing it when it came out and thinking, there aren't too many movies like this. And I think there are even fewer now. Were there any parts of it where you felt like I'm giving too much, I'm showing too much, I'm exposing too much, it's going to hurt?
You know, that's a very good question. I don't think that as a filmmaker you can give enough to your audience to make people feel their humanity and the empathy that Roger spoke about. That's so important with film, and that is really what film is about and should be doing. So no, I wanted to give a lot, and one of the things I felt very strongly about, because most films, they resolve themselves within, the life of the characters. But from my experience with my family, and things aren't resolved in one generation. They always get passed down. And so I wanted to tell a story that expanded through 3 generations, that it would take that long to heal the wounds of the family. And so I wanted to do this multi-generational saga to capture that aspect of our lives as people on this planet. So that became the idea for Mi Familia.
I have a question for Joe. I did not clear this with you beforehand, so I hope it's okay. Was there something in the movie, they talked about the sister who came back, Antonio. Do you mind sharing that part about your own family?
No, I'm very proud of my parents, and you kind of stole my question. Well, the first thing I wanted to tell you, you said that tu familia, nuestra familia, and it absolutely was right. What Chaz is alluding to is the fact that I am the son of a Roman Catholic priest and nun. Yes, round of applause. But,
that is fantastic.
yes. I mean, my mother would have been absolutely mortified at that one beautiful shot, though, after she announces it. But yeah, I feel like it's such a shame, sort of an original sin for this country, is we don't champion each other enough. Mm-hmm. When you think, I'm Italian, the people in Italy are Italian, the people in Japan are Japanese. No, we all come from somewhere else here. And we really have a wealth of culture and shared experiences. And I was wondering about your family specifically. There are those of us who, the superheroes in our lives are our parents and our grandparents and our uncles. These are real life superheroes. The work that nuns do is amazing. They walk the walk, for instance. But your family, what on screen was made up? What on screen was something that you desperately wanted to get across? The political, I mean, that is definitely obvious. The political issues and the things that we always have to fight for in terms of justice. But personally, what in your family did you really want to get across? What was sort of just contoured for the sake of narrative?
Well, a lot of it is based on my family, but I did extensive research in East Los Angeles, and so a lot of the instances, in other words, with Mi Familia, it is my family, but by the same token, I wanted it to be all of the Chicano families in East LA. I wanted to find a story that would resonate. So there's many things in the film which come from other families to bring it together to Mi Familia. And as to what is, and I alluded to the fact that in my family's case, it was my grandfather that was deported, and with one of his daughters, but unlike Mi Familia, we never were able to come back together, and the family was divided to this day. And it has caused a lot of trauma for the family in that way. But a lot of it is my family. Some of it is other people's families. And as to what is specifically my family, as I'm not going to tell you, that's my secret. But my mother once told me, she said, "Greg, I'm never telling you anything about our family again because you just go make a movie about it."
I don't, I'm asking you guys to give up your secrets. I know you too well, but your mother I sat next to your mother at your wedding.
Yeah.
She's a very regal woman and someone who also, maybe I can't say it. I think you're going to be making a movie about your mom too, aren't you?
Yes, I very, very much want to make a film about her. That we wrote a script about her because, and this is another completely different story, but at the end of her life, I got this photograph from a journalist of these World War II spies because my mother was bilingual and they recruited, and my mother was just out of high school, to this Office of Censorship, which was a euphemism for a spy operation where they were illegally monitoring all phone communications within and without Mexico to ferret out German saboteurs who were known to want to cross into the United States from Baja California, in order to blow up aircraft factories in San Diego and Southern California. And my mother actually identified and then helped capture a German saboteur. So, at the end of her life, she finally told me that story, and she said, "But don't make a movie about it," and I'm trying to. Because that's an incredible story. I want to say one thing. I haven't seen the movie in a long time. It's the 30th anniversary of this film, and we have a lot of, this is kicking off a lot of events for this film to be celebrated. They're going to be doing a huge event at the Motion Picture Academy Museum in Los Angeles called Cinelandia, which is going to be dedicated to Latino filmmakers. And they're going to be reconstructing the Mi Familia house for this exhibition and celebrating this film, as well as many others, but really focusing on this particular film, and Mi Familia. And there's a lot of screenings, and so we're kicking off a big kind of renaissance revival of Mi Familia. So you guys are at the beginning of a new journey for this film. And this is important because I think that one of the things we need to do with films, and which festivals like Ebertfest does, is to continue to see these films from the past that need to still be seen and need to be relevant, like we're seeing American President later. We saw the Buster Keaton this morning, and this is a very important thing for cinema because, and for our audience, because we need to preserve film. It's in danger of being, we're losing many, many films. So all these efforts for film preservation and all these efforts to embrace our great art form of cinema, which is America's great art form, is very, very important. So I'm making a big pitch for film preservation.
There is an organization called Indie Collect.
Yeah,
that
I'm on the
does-
board of that.
And I am too.
And you are too. We're
Oh,
both.
I forgot. Yeah, we both are.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of
Yeah.
film preservation.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
important. And we also encourage people to come see films in theater. We think that that's very important too. Thank you.
Well, you know, when I'm sitting in the audience and you hear the audience reaction, it absolutely transforms your experience of the film. You know, I mean, the moment where the little boy runs in naked, I mean, it just like becomes a whole elevated scene when that audience just goes nuts with this unexpected moment, right? That you don't expect, but when it happens, you know, of course, that makes perfect sense. I do want to make one comment because I haven't seen the film in a long time, and the cast of the film, the performances in the film, and Jimmy Smits, my God.
He was wonderful.
I was overwhelmed in watching it again at the emotional depths he reached in doing this film, and I feel it's his greatest performance. I know he feels it is. And he really gave it all. And all of the actors did. He and Jennifer were both nominated by the Independent Spirit Awards for their performances in this film. And they
Are you
both
the
did.
first one to put Jennifer Lopez on the screen?
This is her very first role. This is the very first. She was unknown. She couldn't, you know, and that close-up with the iris, that's her very first film, very first close-up. And it was an interesting story because in my films, the women are as important as the men, and in Nuestras Familias, women's are as important as the men. So the women's roles were just as important as the men's roles for this film. And so we had Jimmy Smits and Isai Morales and Edward James Olmos, so the studio was happy with the male roles, but for the women's roles, like the young mother and Tony and Irene, at that time, they went, well, there's no Latina actresses, you know? So you got to cast Marissa Tomei, you know, or Annabelle Sciarra or one of these folks to take these roles because there's no Latinas. And I said, there are. They just haven't been given an opportunity. So I'm a very stubborn guy, and I said, I'm not casting non-Latinos in this film. That ain't happening, right? I need actors that know this world, that come from this world and understand this world. And so I was, you know, very stubborn, and after a month or more of me not budging, they finally said, okay, you know, cast unknown. So we had this open casting call, and Constance Marie, who plays Tony, and Maria Canals, who plays Irene, all of these actresses, it's their first film. And Jennifer Lopez came in, and I was looking for someone very special to play the young mother because that, and her deportation and her return sets up the whole movie. And you really have to feel that. And wow, was she magnificent. And she couldn't get a role. She was a fly girl on In Living Color, and she was auditioning for films, and they wouldn't cast her. And the reason that they wouldn't cast her was not because she wasn't any good or beautiful. It was that she was too strong and too beautiful, right? And the roles are always the friend of the blonde. And they go like, she's going to overwhelm our blonde star because she's more beautiful and stronger than our star, and she can't be a second banana. And Jennifer Lopez is not a second banana. This woman is a star, all right? But that's what I was looking for. And so we cast her in the film, and immediately, you know, when Francis Ford Coppola saw this film, he was the executive producer. He immediately cast her in Jack with Robin Williams. And of course, she then did Anaconda. And we then did Selena together. And that was, of course, the film that made her a superstar. And so my journey with Jennifer has been very special. And I just think she's an extraordinary woman and an unbelievable talent. And people say to me, you created Jennifer Lopez. And I go, no, 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 no. Jennifer Lopez created Jennifer Lopez. I just gave her an opportunity. And this is a great lesson, which I made reference to, that we spoke to Michael Barker about, how important it is for filmmakers to create these opportunities to have our new stars come forward. And Jennifer has, you know, really changed cinema in this country by the strength and the power of her stardom.
Can I ask you something? You bring up Constance Murray and Jimmy Smits. There's this awesome scene you have when she's trying to broach the subject of marrying this woman, and to me it looked like it was a 2-3 minute unbroken take, and it was 95, right? So I feel like in the wake of Scorsese's Copacabana shot, a lot of people were trying to outdo each other with these really long takes that draw attention to themselves, and I think it was almost finished when I realized this is an unbroken take.
Yes, it's a 6-minute take.
6-minute take.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the favorite scenes that I've ever directed or been involved with. And it's a perfect example of what you need to do as a director to not impose, you know, to not direct in a way, but rather to receive and to trust your actors and their instincts. So I had written this scene, and it was all supposed to be in the living room, all right? Between, you know, Constance and Jimmy, and she convinces him. So we start to rehearse the scene, and I like to give my actors freedom. And so they immediately, I said, just do whatever, you know, forget about the movie, the cinema. Just do this as real people in a real place in a real moment. So Jimmy starts to immediately run away, and she starts to follow him. And pretty soon they're all over the house. You know, he goes into the bathroom to piss, and she follows him in there, you know? And all this, they were doing this great stuff, right? That was just so full of life and so fantastic. And so they go, yeah, but, you know, you'll never be able to shoot this. You know, this is too difficult. And I said, you don't worry about that, all right? Your job is to create life. Our job, the technical job, is to find a way to capture that on film. What comes first is the life that the actors create. So I talked to Ed Lockman, and I'm like, they want to run all over the house. I love this.
And Ed Lockman is one of the great cinematographers.
One of the great cinematographers. And so I said, so how are we going to look? What do we got to do? And he goes like, well, why don't we just get Kurt Gardner, who is this really great Steadicam operator, and just do it all in one shot. We're going to do this whole thing in one take and let them go wherever they want, and we'll just follow them all through the house. All right? And so we told Jimmy and Constance, just do what you want to do. And then they had to light this thing, and they had guys picking up lights and putting them down around the house, you know, to light everything and make it all seem coherent. And so we come to the day to shoot the scene, and Kirk's got his, you know, Steadicam and followed them through the house, and I think we did it 7 times. And it was done on film, so we had to do it within the load, which is a 6-minute load, and get the whole shot in that way. And you know, it was just one of my favorite scenes that I ever created with actors, and that the way we did it. My feeling in film is that you create the life, and then you figure out how to cover it, as opposed to putting the shots first. You know, a lot of directors, they block it, and they say the shots, and then they light it, and then they tell the actors to come in and find all their marks. And I don't do that. I say, forget that. I work with the actors. We find the life of the scene. We find where they like to stand, where they want to be. It's very much easier for actors to hit their marks when it's where they naturally want to go, right? Jimmy and Constance, they didn't have to worry about hitting their marks on this shot because it's where they naturally wanted to go, right? And it was always exactly where we wanted them to be. So I always like to let the actors and have the cinema follow the life that is created. And really the whole film this entire film was done that way. And that particular scene is one of my favorites that I've ever done. And one of the things that's wonderful about it is that unlike one of these long shots in which you say, oh my God, this is an incredible long shot, you forget that it's all one shot because you're so into the emotion of the scene between these two
Extremely
characters.
organic, yeah, extremely organic.
Yeah, and Kirk Gardner, who is one of the great Steadicam operators who's done all these amazing movies, he always says, that's my favorite shot. The other thing you need is you need a Steadicam operator who's really got great instincts because he always knew when to stop, when to go in for a closer shot, when to move back. He was with the actors emotionally operating that Steadicam. So you need to have your crew, your cinematographer, your camera operators, sound, everybody emotionally involved. It takes a family and a team to make a film, and you have to get everybody together in order to create that. And really focusing on the big question: what is this scene about? And let's capture that on screen.
So 30, I'm not going to step on you. 30 years ago, how did you get Francis Ford Coppola interested in your film?
That's a good question. I wrote the script, and my agent, Jeff Berg, we took it to every studio. This is just like the Nuremberg story. We took it to every single studio, and they all passed on it. Nobody wanted to do it. Then, as now, it's very difficult to get Latino projects made in Hollywood. So everybody passed. And I thought, what am I going to do? So, and Jeff goes, I can't find anybody to do this movie. So I had a very good relationship with Tom Luddy, who was head of the Telluride Film Festival, and Tom had a very strong relationship, and he worked for Francis Ford Coppola. And Tom is the one who discovered El Norte and put that in the Telluride Festival, which turned El Norte into a big success, and Roger came on board and everybody, and that became a big success. So I knew Tom, and he was interested in getting into production. So I got in touch with him, and I said, look, I have this script, Mi Familia. I'd like you to read it. So I sent it to him, and then I didn't hear from him for like 6 weeks, and I thought, well, he obviously doesn't like it. Then I got a phone call from Tom Luddy, and Tom goes, I'm sorry it took me so long to read this script, but I've been busy doing other things, and I love this script. I want to take this script to Francis. And I said, great, that would be fantastic. See if he wants to come on board as an executive producer. So he gives the script to Francis, and actually just a few days later, I hear from Francis Ford Coppola. And he goes, come on up to Napa Valley. It was a Sunday. We flew up to Napa Valley, to his mansion there in Napa Valley. And he says, I love this script, this is great. And I said, but Francis, I have to tell you something. Everybody has passed on this movie. Right? And he looks at me and he goes, who was the softest no? And I said, well, New Line, they really almost did it. They liked it, but then they ultimately passed. And he goes, okay, tomorrow, meet me at my office in San Francisco at Zoetrope. So the next day, I go into San Francisco in the morning. I meet Francis, and he says, you wait here. He goes into his office. He shuts the door, goes in there. 45 minutes later, he comes out and he goes, okay, your movie's a go at New Line. Yeah. He called Bob Shea and talked him into doing it, you know? So we were up and running. And I have to say, Francis was the greatest executive producer that I've ever worked with, because he didn't want to change the script. He didn't get involved in the casting, nothing. He let me make the movie exactly the way I wanted to. I got a telegram from him on the first day of principal photography, which said, "Good luck, go make your movie." And he never came to the set. And at the end of the film, when we ran out of money, and we did not have the money to do the river scene, which is such an important scene, right? I showed him the movie, and I said, without this scene, the whole movie doesn't work, and the whole first part of the movie does not work. We have to go back to New Line and get extra money to shoot the river scene. And he did that for me, and we got the extra money, and we shot that river scene with Jennifer. And that was actually shot in Northern California, all right? I'll tell you a little story about the shooting of that scene, because it was very, very interesting. We were looking for a location to shoot it, right? And I needed a raging river, but I needed to be able to have all the boats and everything for the safety of the scene. So this location person said, "Go to this place and you can find the river that you want." Well, I go to this place and it's dry. There's no water at all. And I'm with the guy, and he says, "Believe me, there will be water." And I go, "Well, what do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, there's a dam. And at night, we have to open the dam up, and this whole river fills up, right? Because we have to do with the overflow. And then we shut it down in the day." And I said, "Well, can you open it up during the day?" Right? And they said, "Yeah, we can." So we arrived with the crew and Jennifer and everything, and it's dry. And I said, "Okay, open the dam." The water comes out, and I go like, "We need more." I was able to actually direct the level of the water. Right? It's raging, you know, through, and then we had the stunt double, and Jennifer goes, "The stunt double's ruining my performance. I got to get in there." You know, and she's a very tough lady, you know. So she did most of the work herself on that particular scene. But it was really fantastic, because we had total control over the level of the water and everything at this crazy location in Northern California. And then, of course, we put that scene in the movie, and it's one of the most gripping scenes in the film, and it was a very complicated film to shoot.
I have one more question. And
No
then
problem.
I'm almost afraid to ask this question. Was the baby ever in the water?
No, well, okay, that's a good question. When she's in the river, it's a doll.
Oh.
And then the close-ups with the actual baby, we shot in a special little pool that was warm water, you know, at the correct temperature, and we had doctors and stuff there to make sure that it would be safe for the baby to get those particular close-ups. But when you see the movie, all the close-ups with the baby and the water coming around them, that's in a warm jacuzzi that we shot that particular scene, that particular part of the scene in order to do that, because you couldn't put the baby in that room.
I'm very relieved.
But I'm glad that you think it was. That just shows you we did a great job at creating the illusion that the baby was really in the river.
I just assumed it was a stunt baby.
Yeah. I would not be surprised, you know. I guess today with AI, you know, you could do it differently, but I thought the way we did it was completely effective.
So I had a question for you about, I'm so fascinated by compression in a movie. When I first saw this film, I was completely entranced by it, and you know, all great movies, you kind of lose track of time. And I came out of it, and I looked at my watch, and it was 2 hours and 8 minutes later, but I thought, that can't be right. That can't be right. Like, this is like The Godfather. This is like a 3-hour movie or something. And I asked the person who set up the screening, I said, what's the running time on this movie? And she said, 2 hours and 8 minutes. I went, that's not right. That can't be right.
Yeah.
How do you make it so that we have a supporting character? You've got tons of them in this movie.
Yeah.
And if you go back and actually do the math, these people who made this incredible impression on you are only in like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And old movies were so great at that too.
Yes.
Like, you know, Casablanca, you know, some of your favorite characters in that they get 6 minutes.
Yeah, and it's like Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs, he's only like 8 or 9 minutes, right? That he's actually on screen, and he won Best Actor Oscar for like the shortest performance in the history of cinema. But you think he's the whole movie, you know?
How
And
do you
he's
do
only
that?
in a few minutes. Well, this becomes a structural question, so it's an interesting writer question. So the way I did it was, here's what I thought. I went, okay, I go to movies, and they're great, but they also can get boring, and then there are parts that are boring, and then you see a great scene, and then it kind of, as they're setting up, all kinds of different, you need information. So, there's a lot of informational dialogue, Irving the Explainer and all this kind of thing. So, and that stretches the movie out. So this is why I came up with the device that there's a writer who, Eddie based his performance on me, who's writing the story of his family. If you notice, when he's typing up, the script that he's writing is Mi Familia. He's actually writing the movie that you're seeing, right, in those particular scenes. So I said, let's have this third-person narrative, and he'll be like the chorus in Greek drama, commenting on the action. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write every scene in the movie is going to be a really great, strong, fantastic scene that involves you either emotionally or action or whatever, and all the connective stuff and all the informational stuff will just be the narrator so that you can put all these scenes together without expositional scenes and without informational scenes that slow the pace of the movie down, but give you information that you need in order to know what the story is. So I gave that all over to the narrator, in this case, Eddie Olmos, and so you have one scene after another that's gripping or funny or exciting or emotional with none of the connective tissue. And that way I was able to compress the story through 3 generations and bring it in for a 2 hours and 10-minute film.
That was a good question.
It was a structural solution to it, but then the narrator is able to then make all kinds of fun, comments about the action. They were so full of macho bullshit, and etc. that become funny. So you can actually then use the narrator to make a comment on what the action is happening that provides a lot of the humor or pathos, for the film.
I am getting signs that it's time to go to the audience, because then I think it's time to go to lunch.
Yeah,
Or did
I
we-
want to make one comment, because this film has got this strange spiritual aura to it. I'm sitting next to a man who's the product of a nun and a priest, and that's in the movie. And this experience has happened. We talk about the film dealing with deportations and immigration and how heavy that is, but the other thing that the film deals with very strongly is like George Floyd. And of course, this Brown Lives Matter is a big deal too, because just as many of my people get killed and throttled by the police as African American people. It's very common in our society, which is why I wanted to deal with that in the film. And you see Chucho getting shot by the police in Mi Familia. So when we were shooting that scene under that bridge, there was this Cholo guy, and that was shot in the White Fence area, which is one of the oldest gangs in Los Angeles, where we shot that particular scene. And there was this gang guy who was sitting there watching us shoot this whole scene of the shooting of Chucho. And just the rehearsals, he was there dedicated. So finally I asked him, why is it that you're watching this scene? And he goes, yeah, well, I wanted to see this because, you're reconstructing this shot, this shooting. And I go, what do you mean? And the guy says, well, this is where Chewy, which is Chucho, was killed by the police. Now, we didn't know that we were doing a scene in the exact place that a gang guy named Chucho had been shot by the police. We didn't know that. But it turned out that scene that you see of Isai Morales getting shot is the exact place where a real gang guy named Chucho was shot by the police. So this film has got this incredible vibe where you keep running into experiences.
This is going to sound kind of woo-woo here, but do you ever feel like the universe is directing you?
Yes, I absolutely. I have this belief, which is that I don't believe that directors and storytellers should impose Okay, I don't think that they should give orders. I think they should receive order. And on my desk when I'm writing, I have a copy of an artifact that was found in Tikal, ancient Mayan culture. And it's a hollow bone. And on the hollow bone are inscribed the canoe paddlers who created the universe. It is an image of creation. They have this idea that these gods paddled through the Milky Way, planted the stars that created the universe. And it's a hollow bone. And you're like, why are they equating the wisdom of our ancient ancestors, a hollow bone, with creation? And you suddenly realize that all us creators are hollow bones. Something flows through us. We are not originators, we receive. And it flows through us, and that is our job as creators, to humble ourselves and allow the story to flow. That is the true act of creation.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
There's a question in the
microphone.
balcony
Balcony,
to
yes.
your left, all the way over to the left.
Okay, balcony left.
From San Antonio, thank you for this movie. And I have a question. Did Mimo call Jimmy Chicharron?
What?
Did Mimo call Jimmy Chicharron after the little naked boy scene and they were kind of arguing?
No, I don't. He didn't call him chicharron. No. I don't know that expression.
What does chicharron mean?
Oh, yeah.
Pork
Yeah, no. But, chicharrones, they're like fried pork rinds. But that's not what he called him. He called him, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it wasn't that, no.
There's one in the back there. Do you have a microphone?
Right here, Chaz. House left. Woohoo! Right here. Hello.
Okay, go right ahead.
And this is the last question. We are out of time, unfortunately. Sorry.
Well, I'm sorry I'm going to cut off other questions, but this is a magnificent film, and the storyline is incredible. It is so appropriate for right now. But I want to ask you, as in documenting this long tale of a family, were there any scenes or ideas that you had to cut out?
No, this film is, in other words, we didn't have a lot of money to make this movie. And I'd become like the expert at making a movie for no money that seems like it's huge, and big. I like to describe the cinema that I do, and El Norte and Selena and Mi Familia all are like this, as intimate epics. I love the epic scope, but I love the intimacy of the relationships between the people. So the epic scope part is the part that costs money, and I'm so dedicated to that because I don't want our films, a Latino film, to feel less than because we don't get as big a budget, and to feel, like it's been done for a shoestring, even though that's all I have is a shoestring. So I have become expert at finding ways to do epic for no money. So in order to do that, you can't suddenly, shoot a lot of stuff and then cut out all these scenes, You can't afford that. So the script has to be really tight together, and everything that you shoot you're going to use, and I really believe in that. And I don't believe in rewriting during production. You get that script tight and together exactly the way you want it, and then you go and you shoot that script. So this film has no scenes that were cut out. Every single scene that you see in the film was part of the original script. It is on the screen, and the structure of this film is very, very tight. So no, we didn't, there's nobody that's on the cutting room floor in Mi Familia. And all of these beautiful people and these beautiful characters that are in Mi Familia want to be there. And so I put them there.
And thank you for the very beautiful Mi Familia, Gregory Nava.
Okay.
Thanks for this picture.
Oh, man, thank you, man.